To the other big event, dueling events here in America's newsroom. Moments ago in Northern Virginia, Republican leaders on the House side released their pledge to America. It's 21 pages in length. If they were to take the House and the Senate this fall, this would be their top priorities. They say they wanted America to learn about it and to know about it. Here's the House Minority Leader, John Boehner. He'll kick things off. This is on videotape. We took this in from Virginia while the president was talking at the UN. Let's listen. John Boehner in Virginia moments ago.
And all the people here at Tart Lumber for their hospitality. I also want to thank Congressman Frank Wolf, who represents this district and is with us today. You know, the American people are speaking out like never before. They're concerned about the future of our nation and the future for their children. And they see a government in Washington that isn't listening, doesn't get it, and frankly, the American people think that Washington doesn't really care. We're here today to put forth a new governing agenda built by listening to the American people that offers a new way forward. You know, before I served in Congress, I ran a small business. And I learned firsthand how government gets in the way of job creation in our country. The policies coming out of Washington are creating massive uncertainty for job creators, and the American people are suffering as a result. In order to create jobs, we need to end the uncertainty for job creators, end the spending spree in Washington, and reform Congress itself. Government is out of control in Washington, and we need to rein it in and begin a new drive for a smaller, less costly, and more accountable government in our nation's capital. These are the things that the American people are demanding. And our pledge to America is that the Republicans stand ready to get it done, and beginning today. None of this would have been possible without the work of Kevin McCarthy, our colleague from California, who has spent the last 6 months working night and day to put this project together. Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Leader. The document we released today finally answers the question tens of millions of Americans are asking. Will we leave to our children a stronger, healthier, more prosperous country than our parents left us? As we stand here before you, the future of the country hangs in the balance. Across this great nation, mothers and fathers wonder if their children will find the same opportunities for success that existed just a generation ago. Can you blame them? As a result of the economic, disastrous policies of the current administration, millions of Americans today are out of work. And our children will be saddled with a deficit and debt that is by every definition out of control. We have more people depending on food stamps to feed their families than at any other point in history. The economy is so dire that 1 in 6 Americans has to rely on government assistance for financial support. 1 in 6. The land of opportunity has become the land of shrinking prosperity. Americans across this country are outraged, and so are we. Just as John Hancock boldly signed his name to the Declaration of Independence so that even Britain's King George could read it, I want to say this slowly so there is no room for misinterpretation. Our government has failed us. From the billion-dollar bailouts to the stimulus package that failed to stimulate, to the government takeover of health care, you cried stop. But the Democratic majority in Washington has refused to listen. We are here today to tell you that we have been listening, and we've heard you. We heard you loud and clear. And we assure you there is nothing more inspiring than the common voice of the common man. When you said you wanted a more prosperous, competitive economy, we heard you. When you said you wanted a more accountable government, we heard you. When you said you wanted to repeal the health care bill, we heard you. We know that you want a government dedicated to working for the people, and that's why we've written this pledge to America, our solemn commitment to serving you. This pledge isn't about Republicans or Democrats, liberals or conservatives. It's about you. This pledge focuses largely on three things: a plan to create jobs, end economic uncertainty, and make America more competitive. A plan to cut wasteful Washington spending and reduce the size of government. A plan to reform Congress and restore trust in government. The new agenda embodies Americans' rejection of the notion that we can simply tax, borrow, and spend our way to prosperity. It offers a new way forward that hasn't been tried in Washington, an approach focused on cutting spending, which is sadly a new idea for Congress. To put Americans back to work, our agenda seeks to eliminate uncertainty for the private sector, the innovators and entrepreneurs who create jobs. And it commits to immediate action to change the way Congress works. This pledge is a governing agenda that can be implemented right now if the powers that be in Washington will bring it up. We are calling on Speaker Pelosi and Majority Leader Reid to implement these proposals before Congress leaves this fall. We pledge to you that we will create jobs, end economic uncertainty, and make America more competitive. We will cut Washington wasteful spending and reduce the size of government. And we will reform Congress and restore your trust in government. We pledge to uphold the model for our country our founders envisioned: a grander America, the exception among the nations of the earth, where promise of liberty refreshes the hopes of mankind. And if our current troubles have somewhat dimmed the lights of that shining city on the hill, we pledge to recharge them. They will not go out on our watch. More than 60% of Americans believe our country is headed in the wrong path. They're right. The pledge is a governing agenda that we'll pursue today in order to turn the country around and put us back on the right track. We are optimists. We firmly believe we live in a land of great promise and great possibilities. A land where until recently our tomorrows held more promise than our yesterdays. And we are not ready to concede the fight for the prosperity of our country. We refuse to believe that that same American dream that shone so brightly for our parents had dimmed for our children. We must reverse our current course of action and reject the economically poisonous policies of the Democrat majority. We will take back our country. We will restore for a better future. This is our pledge to you, the pledge to America.